What is up, my 40K scientists? This is your insufferable host, Kev Bottomus, and you're watching another Theory Hammer video, where in this episode, we're going to take a deep dive into the Avatar datasheet and go over why this thing is such a nightmare to fight. So, if you guys and gals like these videos, then you know what to do. Pick up your mighty Thunder Hammer and smash the like button, the subscribe button, Nurgle's bell icon, and then when you're done, check out our other videos as well, and leave a comment for good measure. Before we start, I do want to thank all of you, and this is me just being me, like no sarcasm, no satire. We're pretty close to 1,000 subscribers, and it's just like, that's almost 1,000 people watching my content. That's like twice my graduating class. Like, to me, that's a lot of people. It's not a million, and it never will be. I guess that's kind of my point, though. I'm just so grateful for even the number that I have, and I'm kind of proud of myself, you know? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. No one gave me a YouTube manual, and certainly no one told me to make Warhammer content, of all things. And when I started this channel, I was really not sure what to expect. I don't do the social medias. It's cancer, I've said that for like 20 years, and I'm not even that old. But considering that, the idea of taking this on was troubling, not because I was scared, but because I was just overwhelmed by the things that I did not know. Like, I had to learn video editing, which I still suck at. I had to learn a little bit about filming, which I still suck at. I had to like write outlines and make topics. I had to learn how to like make thumbnails that people might click on, which I'm pretty sure that I still suck at. Why I started this channel is more than I'm willing to discuss as part of this thank you message. But if you want to know more about my personal life and who I am, what I do, that kind of stuff, let me know down below. But my motivations for making the channel aside, here we are 6 months later, and I find that I just love this. Like, I wish I could do it full time. I'm sure the quality would improve much faster if I could. And there's so much that I want to do and so much that I want to cover, but for everything, this entire experience is all because of you guys. And I really wish there were better words that I could use to just show you how incredibly thankful that I am that you guys find me entertaining enough to watch. So thank you. Thank you so much. All of you. The people that give me criticism, the people that give me praise, all of you. You guys are the best, and I'm nothing but humbled by the support and the feedback, so just thank you so much. We're going to be doing another giveaway when we do get to 1,000 subscribers, so if you're interested, go ahead, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, maybe leave a comment as well. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into Avatar mode, because this thing keeps me up at night. Now, to preface this, just so that you all know where I stand, when I do these unit breakdowns, I just want to see how much damage they can do or how much damage they can take. Like, my reactions here are just secondary to the facts. Like, whether or not I use the unit or whether or not the unit has used me is irrelevant, you know? I just love sitting down and figuring out the math of really strong units. It gets me hard, you know? I do own Eldar, and I do own an Avatar and all that good shit, but like I've said, I can only play one army at a time, and so I just have not become the Eldar expert that I have been in past editions in 10th edition, but it doesn't take an expert to understand that the Avatar is fucking crazy. So you've all heard of the Avatar of Khaine. It was at one point under 300 points. It was like 250 at release or something like that. And let me just say, it's still insanely good at its current point cost and gives Eldar something that they don't really have otherwise, which is just a rock that doesn't go away. It is now 335 points, but it's more like 415 because, like most units that I cover in these episodes, you have to pay for a character tax just to take these units to level 9,000. Our character here is a simple Farseer. And so what are we stacking together here, for those of you that don't know? Well, we have the Avatar. He's toughness 12, he's got a 2-up save, he's got a 4-up invuln, and he halves damage, and he also has 14 wounds. The Farseer can then change his fate dice to 6s when needed, and gives him -1 to be wounded. So to put this into perspective, that means that anything that's strength 11 or less, and I don't think there actually is a single strength 11 weapon, there might be one in like Tyranids or something, but you wound me on 6s. 6s. You're strength 11, you wound me on 6s. And then I have a 4-up invuln, and I half damage. Las cannons? Yeah, you wound me on 5s, and then I take a 4-up invuln. So just for some general math, it takes like 54 las cannon shots hitting on a 3 to kill the Avatar. And I'm not sure about you guys, but I don't think I can actually fit 54 las cannons into an army. I don't think I can fit 54 las cannons into like any army, let alone having line of sight with all of them. And that's in the case where you're trying to kill the Avatar in one turn, which is of course unrealistic. Just the whole thing is unrealistic. So the Avatar is just especially good because, like I said, it gives Eldar something that they don't otherwise have much of, which is a unit that can put a lot of pressure on the opponent and can take punishment in return. It's not fighting with other things in the codex either, and the army at large just, I think, benefits from having one. It's really nice to be able to put something somewhere on the table and feel confident that it will stay alive. You can pressure objectives with it, like even the center objectives, because sometimes your opponent just does not have the means to deal with an avatar. Almost everything that hits it wounds it on a 6, except for like true anti-tank, and even then, you're wounding on like 4s at best. There's probably 1 or 2 things that are strength 24 or higher, but like, not even a railgun is strength 24 or higher, so for all intents and purposes, when the avatar has -1 to wound up, you're wounding it on 4s or worse, and more often worse. And remember that things like a railgun, so like true anti-tank stuff, never has more than 3 shots. And like, if it has 3 shots, that's because it was sustained 3 or sustained D3 and you rolled a 3 or something. So unless you're comboing it with sustained or something along those lines, the railgun only has 1 shot. A volcano lance, D3 shots. Skyray, it's 3 shots at strength 14. A rupture cannon, it's 2 shots at strength 18. If we crank this up to 9,000, a volcano lance on the, or a volcano cannon actually, on the shadow sword, that's D3 plus 1 shots. And it still probably bounces off with max shots. So we have lightning fast reactions. The Farseer made us, so lightning fast reactions is a stratagem that Eldar has, makes you -1 to be hit. Farseer then makes you -1 to be wounded. Anybody who's played against -1 to be hit and -1 to be wounded already knows how fucking annoying that is to try to get through, let alone it being toughness 12 with a 4-up invuln and 14 wounds. So let's shoot at it with this volcano cannon. It's heavy, but that's useless because you have to move in order to be able to see anything. So you're hitting me on 4s, so automatically half of them miss. You wound me on 2s, but now it's 3s. So you wound me with like 1.5, which isn't possible on, dice, but this is a laboratory setting, remember. So after all said and done, you get like 0.33 wounds that actually turn into damage. It's 12 damage apiece, so you're going to do like 4 damage to the avatar. And then I'm going to half it to 2. So that's not what actually happens. What actually happens is that you either get 1 through or none, and so you either do 6 damage or 0, but the amount of damage that you will do on average is closer to 0 than it is to 6. And so the point of the exercise is to illustrate that even with these kinds of weapons, you have a pretty high chance of just bouncing the fuck off entirely. Now, the Avatar, however, can be killed easily in a few different ways. First off, he just hates dev wounds, and he has no recourse against them. So things like tank shock and grenades, they can go a long way to kill an Avatar. Like on average, you can do 6 wounds to him just by simply spending 2 command points. 3 from the grenades, maybe another 3 from the tank shock, unless you're toughness 12, in which case you might get a 4th one there. So, assuming you're a toughness 10 vehicle or 9 or something like that. And if you can just do that in 2 turns, the Avatar just gets fucked. So as somebody using the Avatar, make sure that you are aware of where your opponent's mortal wounds and dev wounds come from and try to avoid them. Try to avoid them or get rid of them as soon as you can so that the Avatar can kind of just run amok. But otherwise, you can kind of just plop him anywhere and he just won't fucking die. And on top of the insane durability this asshole has, this thing also puts out a massive amount of damage against singular targets and targets without an invuln. So let's take a look at how much damage he does. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch things up from some of my older episodes where I attack specific units. If you guys like this new format more, let me know down below, because then I'll just switch to this if it's easier. Like I say, I'm trying to improve these videos. I don't have a manual here, so if you guys like something more than another, just let me know. And so what I'll do here is just show you the amount of damage he can do against targets that have a specific set of attributes. And so what I mean by that is, if I'm wounding something on 3s that has a 4-up invuln, or that has a 5-up invuln, or so on. So like for a Land Raider, for example, that would be me wounding it on 3s. It will have a 4-up save because of Armor of Contempt against shooting, but only a 5-up save in combat. And so that's what we're going to do here. So when the Avatar needs to wound on 3s against something with a 4-up invuln, if he shoots at it, he'll do about 6 damage or kill about 1 model if you're shooting at a unit. In combat, if he's wounding on 3s against a 4-up invuln, he'll do about 13 damage, or he'll kill 2 to 4 models depending on whether or not you use your sweep or your strike attack, just depending on what you're hitting there. And so in total, you'll do about 19 damage to whatever that thing was that you wounded on 3s with a 4-up invuln, or you'll kill about 3 to 5 models. So something that's toughness 8, which I'm not really sure, but maybe like a sentinel. If you're wounding something on 3s and it's going to end up with a 5-up save, so like a Land Raider in combat, for example, Or, you know, like a Plague Burst Crawler, they just have a 5-up invuln. If you shoot at that thing, you're going to do 7 damage on average with your gun, or you'll kill about 1 model, depending on what the unit is that you're shooting at. In combat, you'll do an additional 17 damage to that thing, and kill about 5 models, depending on what they are, and depending on whether or not you use your strike or your sweep. And so in total, against that Plague Burst Crawler, we'll say, or that Land Raider in combat, you do 24 damage, or you kill about 4 models if they're, you know, I'm trying to think of like a toughness 8 model with a 5-up invuln, which I don't know of, but the amount of models that you'll kill is probably not going to increase very much based on this math. And I guess the best toughness 8 target would be Hive Guard, right? They're 4 wounds apiece, so you probably kill like 2 or 3 Hive Guard if you're swinging in on them. Now, if we're wounding on 3s and you have like a 6-up invuln, or you've got a 2-up save, and now you're down to a 6-up save due to my AP, with my gun, I'll do about 9 damage, depending on what I'm shooting at. I'll kill about 2 models. So say something like a Hammerhead, you would be wounding it on 3s. If it's getting shot at and is in cover, it will get a 6-up save in this case, and so it'll take about 9 damage from your shooting. In combat, it can't be a Hammerhead because it wouldn't get a save, but anything that you'd be wounding on 3s, that gets a 6-up save at that point. So anything, you know, with a 2-up save that you'd be wounding on 3s, so a Vindicator, I guess, would be a good example here, you'll do an additional 26 damage to that, or kill about 7 models with your sweep attacks, because most likely whatever you're wounding on 3s and is getting a 6-up save, you're probably sweeping against. So in total, 35 damage to that singular model, whether, you know, it's a Hammerhead or something along those lines, 35 damage or about 10 dead models, depending on whether you strike or you sweep. Now, for wounding something on 2s, like Custodes, Terminators, things like that, for wounding things on 2s with a 4-up invuln, when we shoot, we'll do about 6 damage if it is a singular target, or we'll kill about 1 Custode, 1 Terminator, 1 equivalent model there. When we swing into combat there, we do about 13 damage on that target, and kill about 5 models depending on whether we sweep or strike. Now, for wounding on 2s against something in combat, say Grey Knight Marines with Armor of Contempt up, that'll put them to a 5-up save, and we will be wounding them on 2s. Our shooting is the same. We do about 6 damage to a single target, whatever that may be, or we kill about 1 model. In combat, we do about 18 damage or kill about 7 models, depending if we strike or sweep. And in total, we're going to do about 24 damage or kill about 8 models. And then with our last example here, 2s to wound, you get a 6-up save. Maybe you're attacking some Space Marines with Armor of Contempt or something, I'm not really sure. But you get about 12 damage through with your shooting, or you kill about 2 models. And then in combat, you do about 22 damage or kill about 8 models. And so you look at about 34 total damage to a single target, or an entire 10-man unit dead, unless it's like Guardsmen or something, and then, you know, there's going to be 10 more of them. But this is what the Avatar's output looks like. It's not amazing, but it's also not terrible. However, his singular damage against singular targets is pretty through the roof, considering that he gets a reroll to hit, a reroll to wound, potentially a fate dice. He's AP 4, and it's D6 plus 2 damage a pop. And so just about anything that stands in his way will probably die. You know, he walks up to Mortarion. Mortarion's going to be wounded on 3s and get a 4-up invuln. Yeah, he does 19 damage to Mortarion. So, just as an example. So this guy, he just hits really, really, really hard, and he is insanely durable. Here is how insanely durable this fucking thing is. So we're going to put lightning fast reactions on him because we have an Autarch, and so we have extra CP. So we're not worried about our CP use here. So -1 to hit, -1 to wound from the Farseer. We're not going to use any fate dice because I'm feeling lazy with the math here. Fate dice make things weird. So, how many bolters does it take to kill an Avatar? Well, it turns out it's actually more than 1,000, because you're going to hit with half of them, you're going to wound with about 80, and then he'll fail 14 saves. So, it takes 1,000 bolter shots to kill this thing. It takes 500 heavy bolter shots to kill this thing, because he's going to end up with a 3-up save there, unless he's in cover, in which case it'll actually double it back to 1,000, because he's half the damage, so it's no different than a bolter at that point, because it needs 6s to wound. It has no AP if he's in cover, and it's a bolter at that point. So between 500 and 1,000 heavy bolter shots if he's in cover. How about plasma guns? How many plasma guns do I have to shoot at the Avatar to kill him? Well, 336 it turns out. Half of them will miss. Only a 1/6 of them will wound, and then I get a 4-up invuln that are each 1 damage because I half damage. So yeah, 336 plasma gun shots. Alright, fine. let's do a 3 damage weapon, because he only halves it to 2. We're going to shoot him with autocannons. Oops, I hit with half. I only wound with a 6 of them still, and it takes 168 autocannons to kill the Avatar. Multi-Meltas. This ought to be a little bit better, right? Because multi-Meltas get the +2 Melta if you're within Melta range. Well, actually, no. Fuck you. It takes 96 multi-Meltas within Melta 2 range to kill the Avatar. Because, again, you hit me on 4s, you still wound me on 6s. Yeah, I got a 4-up invul and a half the damage, and then you get +2. But between half of them missing, so you're already down to like 45, 40 something, only a 6 of those are going to wound. So you're looking at like 8, right? Not even 8, maybe 7 or 8. I pass half of those. So yeah, you can see how this gets stupid. How about thermal spears? Crazy Melta 4 weapons from Imperial Knights. Yeah, it takes 36 of them. And this includes the Melta 4. Now, that does not include the reroll to hit and the reroll to wound, so that probably would bring it down to around 24 shots if I were to guesstimate right now. So call it 24 shots with thermal spears, which is still twice as many thermal spear shots that you can shoot in one turn legally. At least if you're playing Imperial Knights. Chaos Knights can probably get 12, which would then be 24 shots, but they don't get a reroll to hit or a wound, so they still wouldn't kill it, and they'd all have to be in line of sight, and you can see why this is dumb. Alright, so las cannons, very, very common anti-tank weapon. Takes 72 las cannons. I know I said it takes 54 earlier, but that's because they were hitting on 3s when I said that. If I use lightning fast reactions, you need 72 las cannon shots to kill the Avatar, because again, hit me on 4s, wound me on 5s, I get a 4-up invul, and then I half damage. You're just never getting through this thing. The only way to kill the Avatar efficiently is with dev wounds and with mortal wounds. So if you can spam mortal wounds and dev wounds, you're probably fine. But if you can't, you just need to avoid the Avatar, unfortunately. Because the Avatar just hits every box. It moves 10 inches, so it's pretty fast. It hits hard in combat. It shoots well. It overwatches well. It's impossible to kill. I'm pretty sure it's OC5, it's on screen. And so it just does everything. It just does everything really, really well. And so these are some of the things, those examples are what makes the Avatar better than the average monster. It moves fast. It shoots good. It combats really well. It's very, very hard to kill. It is the best monster that's in the game probably. And the thing is, this thing is just good at everything. Like you try to move near it, it just kills you. And so let's take a look at some of its tricks, starting with this Overwatch trick. It just so happens that Eldar have these things called Miracle Dice. Actually, I meant to say Fate Dice. Totally did that on purpose. With Fate Dice, you can just auto-hit. So to break this down, you have the Farseer that can change any Fate Dice to a 6. So you take your Fate Dice that shows a 1, and you turn it into a 6. And now the Avatar auto-hits with its Strength 16, AP 4, D6 plus 2 damage weapon 2 times. Or 4. Who fucking knows? Because this goddamn thing has sustained D3. So let's just back up for 1 second, because I know your head is spinning, at least for those of you who have never faced this thing. We just turned a Fate Dice that showed a 1 into like 3 auto hits on a fucking Overwatch with an anti-tank weapon that does more damage on average than a Gladiator Lancer. So that's cool. This thing hits like a meteor in combat, and against like anything that doesn't have an invuln, so 6 attacks like we just did, reroll hit, reroll wound. They're all strength 14, AP4, and D6 plus 2 damage, and his sweep profile is actually good as fuck. It's a Custodes profile. It's 12 attacks, strength 7, AP2, 2 damage. Like, that's a good sweep profile. And he doesn't just slap, like, this guy fucking cleaves, dude. Like, he is a meat cleaver. He has become the meat cleaver. He is one with the cleave. Okay, I'm done. So, anyway, this guy can also make use of Fire and Fade if you really, really need to, but I'm not sure that you would use it on him instead of using it on something like a Prism, if you can, but you could if you really wanted to. And something else that is a lot better to use on him, assuming that you put him in a place where, he's just sitting in the open, is that lightning fast reactions. Because like I said, the -1 to hit and the -1 to wound just makes him extra doesn't die. Takes 72 las cannons to kill him, like, what? And so, how do you use Mr. Kane, you may be asking? Eldar generally play in a very annoying way, and I'm allowed to say that because I play them. Eldar tend to have reliability and damage output. They even have good combat units, but what does Eldar lack, among other things? Well, durable units, for the most part. They have a couple here and there, but generally speaking, their entire range is mostly not durable units. Most of them are toughness 3 with 1 wound and have like a 3-up save, sometimes worse. Like we're talking sister profiles. Any kind of volume at them just deletes them. And like sisters, they can hit very, very hard. And like sisters, their units are kind of expensive. So you kind of need to use them surgically, not even kind of. You need to use them surgically when you are trading units. And Eldar do have a lot of reposition shenanigans that with things like Phantasm, Fire and Fade, they have artillery, they have like jump, shoot, jump on units. And so overall, Eldar are just one of those factions that are really good at being mobile and being able to reposition. They hit hard, but they just can't take a punch in most cases. They have some units that can, but the vast majority of them just can't. And so because of that, they have these ways of being able to like not be interacted with. It's like, oh, you're done moving? Phantasm. Oh, I popped out with a single fire prism and I shot all 3 of them through it? Cool, fire and fade the exposed prism back behind cover. Oh, you got stuff on that objective? Spectres, shoot you off the point, and then I move on to it and steal it from you. So, what Eldar do not like is pressure. Eldar are kind of hard to play right, and they can sometimes take a lot of practice, and I know that this is a contentious thing. Have there been times when Eldar played themselves? Of course. Have there been times when it took skill to be good with Eldar? Yes. Right now, with where they are at in terms of balance, I do believe it takes a higher skill level to turn out with them at this point. But I think the faction itself definitely still has it, which is insane, considering that they've been nerfed like more times than factions in my game, and that game is still in development. So most Eldar players don't like being pressured, especially with a lot of things on several areas of the board. World Eaters are a good example, like when played right, because they will just put a ton of pressure everywhere they go. And so it's up to the Eldar's firepower and their precision to retake an entire area of the table in one turn, otherwise they just get overrun. And that's where the Avatar comes in. The Avatar offers counter pressure, and I think that adds a really important element to them that they just don't otherwise have. Wraithguard are cool and they're durable, but they don't add a lot of pressure like the Avatar does. Eldar will hit you with something that will kill you, but then you just kill it in return if it's mispositioned or if you don't have any movement shenanigans that you can use on it. The Avatar offers a unit that can pressure an area of the table and also survive while doing so, and this is huge when combined with everything else that I just mentioned about how Eldar play. Now you can meet their pressure with your pressure and put like a roadblock up in some sense. Or you can use your abilities to reposition while the Avatar continues putting pressure in some area. It adds that element of the game into your army, and since Eldar are otherwise very squishy, adding this element of durability really makes target priority much more difficult. Because without him, the dynamic of the game is just different. Like I recently played against a friend of mine who is a very decent Eldar player, and before each game, we went back and forth as to whether or not to include the Avatar, and out of the 3 games we played, I lost 2 of them. And I would just straight up say, like, if he didn't have the Avatar, then I just simply wasn't afraid of his army. Like, yeah, it can do some cool stuff, things can reposition, it can do all the Eldar stuff, but I'm just not scared of it. But now you add the Avatar in, and I can do a complete 180, because I can deal with your non-Avatar stuff with ease, but now that he's there, he kind of just, like, stops me from doing what I want. And I just think that he's an auto-include still. Like, him, the Farseer on foot, the Autarch for extra CP, that's 500 points of just auto-include every time because he adds so much than just like a big monster. He plays well while the rest of the army does the Eldar stuff. He can keep pressure on an area while the rest of the army repositions after supporting him in the shooting phase. And I just love this thing. I mean, look how cool it is. And it just hits so hard. And so I think the Avatar is probably actually one of my favorite models in the Eldar range entirely. That's how much I like the Avatar. And the fact that it is this good now just makes me happy. I'll have to get mine painted up at some point. Maybe showcase it. I have so much, I have an entire pile of shame that's like probably bigger than some of your guys' houses, which is, I need to do something about that. One day, guys, one day, but not today. And so what do you guys think about Mr. Avatar here? Do you think the Avatar is an auto-include? Let me know down below. Wailing Doom the like button and the subscribe button, crush Nurgle's bell, check out our other videos, all the YouTube stuff that I always ask. And so with that, my little aspect warriors, go out there and make people upset with Eldar. And I'll see you in the next one.